right, one last look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on your Tuesday morning. Looking on the roadways, cleaned up a little bit since a little bit earlier on. Still have some of the same accidents out there, though. One on I-20 westbound on Alpine Road that says you get 76B, as well as Piney Woods Road and Broad River Road as well. So be careful as you're making your way through that area. But other than that, everything looking relatively okay in and around the city. Right now, still sitting about 79 degrees. Highs today going to get up to about 90 with the heat index well towards 100. So stay hydrated and stay safe out there in this heat. That's your traffic and weather from Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the early game. Nine o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Just Tyler Head flying solo with you today for the hour. Jack Veltri going to be out for about the next week. Going to Arizona. Hanging out with some family and friends out there. So certainly well deserved. Of course, Jack is on the beat for Gamecock football, Gamecock basketball, and of course Gamecock baseball. So he is here, there, and everywhere for the majority of the year. So anytime he can get some time to relax and hang out a little bit, that is certainly well deserved. So we'll get him back in here next week. I told him this after he told me he was going to Arizona. I'm like, well, you're gonna have to tell me what it's like to be in 100+ degree temperatures and not have humidity, because it's like the dry heat or whatever out there where you can be out there in the sun all day and not really like sweat. Which is a stark contrast to what we deal with here, where if you went outside yesterday and if you're going outside at any point today, you're going to feel that like blanket of heat on top of you the entire time you're out there, where it's already hot, but it feels like it's just weighing you down that much more. And as I said in the last little weather report there, the high today is only going to be around 90, but the heat index is going to make it feel like it's 100. So definitely brutal. But if you've lived in Columbia or the Southeast your entire life, you're probably used to it at this point. A lot of things to get to. Last night, NBA Finals, game number 5. Oklahoma City picks up the 120-109 victory. A game where they kind of managed the gap for most of it, around 10 to 12 points. I know Indy kind of made a run there late after a really strong third quarter to get the margin down, 5, maybe 6 at one point. They made it a close game, but OKC was able to pull away down the stretch there, and obviously, pick up the win to move to a 3-2 series advantage. I mentioned this to Bill and Preston just a moment ago. It really feels like Friday night in game number 4 when Indiana was not able to close it out and pick up the win that would have bumped them up to a 3-1 advantage. That kind of felt like where the series turned, right? And again, you saw Indiana be able to make a game out of it at a point last night, but when you play against a team that is just kind of better than you overall over the course of a long series, that ends up catching up with you, right? And that better team usually ends up winning out more often than not. So if Indiana was able to steal another one on Friday night, then that would have made a huge mountain for Oklahoma City to climb. Obviously, Indiana was not able to do that. Oklahoma City came back, something they haven't had to do a whole lot this season because they've just been dominating teams. But now it seems like the odds are firmly in Oklahoma City's favor to obviously win one out of the next 2 and claim that NBA Finals championship. So game number 2 coming up on Thursday, I believe, as, again, you have more travel mixed in there as, the NBA playoffs are long enough, but when you get to the finals, you have those extra days built in for travel and all that kind of stuff that makes it drag on even that much longer. So that happened last night. Also had plenty of action at the College World Series as well, which I'll get into in just a moment, but it is 9 o'clock. And as always, we have to kick things off with our Sandstorm Pick Me Up.
Time to get hyped.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm.
Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. Let's go out to Omaha, Nebraska yesterday, facing elimination, Arkansas and Murray State. And this happened.
Greatness from Gage! A no-hitter!
Yes, Gage Wood, Arkansas pitcher, goes out there and tosses a no-hit bid against Murray State en route to keeping Arkansas's national championship hopes alive. In what was a phenomenal performance. Obviously when you throw a no-hitter, but, you know, no-hitters are such a rare thing in baseball. It's very mesmerizing to watch, right? And this game started at 2 o'clock yesterday when Terry and I were still doing the halftime show, and we had the game on in the TVs in here in the studio, and you know I'm watching it as the game is starting and kind of looking up and glancing up, you know, between pitches and stuff like that. But when you're obviously doing something else and you don't have the sound on, you're not fully paying attention to everything that's happening. I did notice that they kind of sped through the first couple of innings relatively quickly. So I was like, all right, well, somebody or one or both pitchers are probably, you know, cooking pretty well so far through these first couple innings. By the time I got home, I believe it was in the 7th inning, and that's when I turned it on, you know, at my apartment, is when I was like, oh, he's going for a no-hit bid. And no-hitters are one of those kind of things that, in my opinion at least, regardless of who's doing it, you cheer for the accomplishment, right? I didn't have a dog in the fight for this game. I probably sided with most people in wanting to see Murray State go as deep as they possibly could, but at the same time, I understand how good of a team Arkansas is, and knew that was probably going to be a tough challenge for Murray State to, you know, obviously overcome. But as you get in these late innings, you're just cheering for this guy to go out there and be able to accomplish a feat that is so difficult in baseball, regardless of what level you're playing at, especially at the College World Series of all places, something that had not been done since 1965. So Gabe Woods goes out there, mows down the entire Murray State lineup, and it was nearly a perfect game. It ends up hitting a batter in the 8th, hit another one in the 9th, but it gets overturned because you know, they said that he leaned into it. But in true, like, you know, baseball fashion, when Gage Woods was asked about it after the game, his mind immediately went to the guy that he hit.
You just threw the third no-hitter in the history of this event. How do you describe your emotions?
I shouldn't have hit the guy. That's it. That's all I got to say.
I love that. Again, you've accomplished something so rare and so hard to do, especially at that level, playing in the College World Series, and you're thinking about, man, it could have been a little bit better. But Arkansas stays alive. Again, they got a tough draw right out of the gate to start the College World Series with a familiar foe in LSU that they ended up dropping a game to. And now they keep their hopes alive. And still no margin for error. They already have one loss. But, again, we know Arkansas is looked at as maybe the best team overall entering this thing, and they still have a chance to go out there and win the national championship. Unfortunately, on the flip side of things, Murray State does see their Cinderella run come to an end. It's been a fun story to follow. Again, they only the 4th seed to ever make it to Omaha, and unfortunately for them, they are 2 games and done. And as expected, Dan Circa, the head coach for the Murray State Racers, very emotional in the postgame, reflecting on the run that his team has gone on.
You know, one of my wife's favorite movies is A League of Their Own, and say there's no crying in baseball. Well, you can throw that out the window. There's no way I'm making it through this right here. What these guys mean to me and my family, I can't put it into words. You know, I after Duke, you know, we we gave glory, and we'll give glory in defeat. You know, this journey, and God's great. It's unbelievable. The support we've gotten has just been unbelievable. After we beat Duke, I got 1,300 text messages. All the social media and other, I mean, it was blown away. Just hearing from people I haven't heard from in forever. Some people I didn't know that tracked down my number. It's just this journey and what these guys have done to inspire people, to inspire kids to play baseball, to inspire families to watch together, to inspire families to come here and visit and be a part of it. That's what's so special about this, and it's amazing. I mean, it truly is amazing. You know, hats off to Arkansas. I think Gage Wood made himself some money today. Holy cow, with our offense and what we've done all year to a lot of really good pitchers. I'll take the blame. I didn't prepare these guys for what we saw today because it was special, and they've been special all year. So, just again, thanks to everybody. This journey. I heard all these guys saying that, you know, don't be sad. It's over. Smile because it happened, and Hoagie might have summed it up, or both, because we're sad, but we're really glad that this thing happened, and so many people were a part of it.
And it's such a fun story that we've been able to follow over these past couple weeks because we don't see this as often, right? You see Cinderella runs in the NCAA tournament and all that kind of stuff that, capture America's hearts for a couple weeks. But baseball, it's a lot harder to do. And I would think, if you really break it down, I think winning the College World Series, getting to the College World Series alone, let alone winning it, might be one of the harder tournament accomplishments in all of college sports because of what you have to have, the depth of your team, the pitching, obviously all that kind of stuff you need to go deep into a baseball tournament like this. So to see Murray State do that, again, operating at a fraction of the budget of what all these other teams in the Final Eight are operating at, it's really cool. And again, at some point, they're going to run into a team that was just that much better than them, and that's what happened yesterday when it came to Arkansas. And give credit to Murray State's pitching staff. They held Arkansas to just 3 runs, so it wasn't like they went out there and got blown out or something like that. They were competitive to a point, but obviously couldn't do anything with Gage Wood, who went out there and had a literal career day for a guy that is right kind of on that fringe of being a first-round pick, depending on what mock drafts you're looking at. So there's no shame in having to bow out after playing an opponent and a pitcher like Gage Wood, but obviously, a lot of emotion from Murray State. You heard there from Dan Skirka. I saw, some pictures after the game of all the Murray State guys, going out there and collecting dirt out there at Charles Schwab Field to kind of remember that moment. Because for a lot of them, the seniors, the guys that don't have any eligibility, this is it. I mean, this was the end of your baseball career. I think it was Dexter Mercer, one of their players the other day that, has been noted as just keeping a smile on his face the entire time through this run, good days and bad, because he's like, hey, my baseball career's about to end. When this is over, it's over for me. So I want to enjoy every single moment. And a couple of the players that were on the panel with Dan Skirka yesterday after the game, just, talking about the ride, right? And talking about the moments with their teammates and the moments with, in the hotels and all those kind of things that are really going to be the lasting memory, in addition to obviously the baseball and the wins and all those kind of things. And, it kind of reminds you at the end of the day, I know we're in an era of NIL and all those kind of things and transfer portals. At the end of the day, you do have these stories of guys that are just having fun playing the game and playing it for the love of the game and all those kind of things that don't have ulterior motives to why they're at certain schools and all those kind of things. So that was a neat story to follow. Enjoyed getting to see Murray State for as much baseball as we got to see them do this postseason. And you certainly wish all those guys luck in whatever the next chapter of their life is. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what this program does from this, right? They'd never made the College World Series before. Does this potentially spark something for a run going forward on this team being a constant threat out of one of these mid-major conferences? We'll have to see. I did read an article yesterday where Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball said, as we enter this new era of revenue sharing, that Murray State might actually be a sign of things to come in a sport like college baseball. I'll tell you why that is coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you, flying solo with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Tyler Head here for our friends over at Twin Peaks, right down the street from you here in the Vista. There is so much great sports action going on right now. NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals. You have College World Series. You got Major League Baseball going on, WNBA in action, as well as the FIFA Club World Cup, which is going to be running for the next month. And you can witness the entire tournament and every compelling matchup down at your local lodge. That's right. They're going to have every game on their TVs. Grab your team and make a run to Twin Peaks for buckets of Michelob Ultra and platters of sauced and tossed wings. Take in all that great soccer action. But again, no matter what sport you're into, they've got you covered, as well as tons and tons of delicious food like those wings, burgers, and so much more. And of course, can't rule out those 29-degree draft beers. All that and so much more with our friends at Twin Peaks, right down the street in the Vista. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyrett along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Talking about the College World Series. And we are now 2 weeks away from revenue sharing going live on July the 1st, where we usher in this new era of college sports where student athletes are going to be able to be paid directly from their universities, a salary essentially to play their respective sports. And we've talked about ad nauseum, the percentages and how the money's going to be divvied up between sports. Football, for most schools, is going to occupy a majority of it. And we've said, and NIL is not going to go away, by the way. That's still going to be a thing. And we've said from a college football standpoint, this, I think, will create more of a gap between the teams at the very top and the teams at the very bottom, especially in the Power Four, right? Like, this is going to make Ohio State a whole lot further away and a whole lot better than Purdue or some of those teams that are at the bottom as of right now, because they just have the more funds and resources to be able to get talent on a year in, year out basis, what we expect from a school like, Purdue. But that's not going to be the case for every single sport. And on the heels of a Murray State making a miracle run to the College World Series, a mid-major in Coastal Carolina maybe looking like one of the best teams still left standing at this point, you do have to wonder what the future of college baseball is going to look like. And Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball was quoted in an article that I read yesterday by Elizabeth Merrill of ESPN.com saying this could actually kind of be a sign of things to come. He talks about, the revenue sharing on the horizon, and one quote in here really sticks out to me. He says, "I just think the pathway to exposure in college baseball on a national stage is a lot easier than some other sports, especially, obviously, football." So just kind of looking at Murray State and Coastal Carolina here, I think you're looking at two schools which could be prime examples of using your revenue sharing resources to the sport that is on the cusp of maybe being a national champion, as opposed to sports that still may have a long, long way to go. Here's what I mean by this. Let's take a look at Murray State football, right? Jody Wright obviously was an assistant here at South Carolina, now down there trying to rebuild that Racers program, 1-11 this past year. They have a ways to go. Murray State baseball, quite literally, just eliminated yesterday in the College World Series, where, maybe a little bit better team, maybe a little more talent on that team. Who knows? Maybe they could be talking about being a national champion here in a couple days. And from an exposure standpoint, the College World Series does better numbers than the FCS playoffs do. The FCS playoffs averaged 1.24 million viewers per game this past year for the numbers that were available, at least. College World Series last year was 1.56. So you're getting more eyeballs, more exposure to your university by being in the College World Series as opposed to being a part of the FCS playoffs, which, of course, Murray State is an FCS team. But let's take this a little bit of a step further. Let's go to a team like Coastal Carolina that, again, looks like maybe one of the best, if not the best team still left standing. Kevin Schnall has made the point over and over, hey, we're not a Cinderella. We're a legit powerhouse team in college baseball, have been for a while, and will continue to be. Think about this from a Coastal Carolina perspective. And I don't know what their whole money situation is down there. Chance Miller, the athletic director down there now after his time at South Carolina, I don't know if they're going to be able to spend up to the $20.5 million limit every single year. I'd venture to think probably not, as would be the case with most Group of 5 schools. But what they can do is interesting. While they may not have the total funds of teams like in the SEC, what they can do is put more money towards the sport that is the best out of all of them, that being baseball. Again, they are already good in the situation that they're in as of right now. But if they could potentially put the same amount of money, if not more, into baseball that teams in the SEC are doing, you're going to start bringing in even more talent from the transfer portal or the high school ranks that's going to be willing to play for you where they may not be able to or may not be willing to do that as of right now, right? So let's just go on hypothetical budgets here. Let's say a team like, I don't know, Tennessee has $5 million that it wants to give to its baseball program through the revenue sharing. Well, again, they're going to be able to spend up to the $20.5 million anyway, but that's a small percentage of that. Where Coastal Carolina may say, hey, we can't quite spend up to that $20.5 million, but instead of putting 75% of it towards football, like we talk about so many programs around the country likely going to do, how about we put like 60% towards football to make sure that we are putting even more resources towards baseball so that they can compete. And this isn't to say suddenly that all the mid-majors are going to overpower the SEC or the Big Ten or the Big 12 or the ACC or anything like that. No, but I think the playing field's going to be a lot more even in this sport compared to others. We talked about this with college basketball as well, where you look at teams like in the Big East, right? Teams that don't have to worry about their football program, if they even have a football program at all. You know, St. John's, Villanova, UConn obviously doesn't have that great of a football program themselves, where they can dedicate a lot more money to their men's college basketball programs, which in turn may allow them to offer more money than any other school in the country to come play for those respective schools, right? So we could see a shift in college basketball where those suddenly become the power teams and the power conferences because they don't have to worry about football. Where the SEC, as great as it is to be so good at so many sports, the money that football is going to command out of its 16 institutions may actually end up hurting some of these other sports. Not completely. I'm not going to say that, SEC baseball is suddenly going to fall off the, the face of the earth here, but the gap, right? I mentioned earlier that gap in football between the Ohio States and the Purdues and Northwesterns and stuff like that is going to grow larger because of revenue sharing. I think the gap between the SEC, the ACC, and some of these mid-majors, particularly when you talk about, the Coastals and, teams like Murray State and stuff like that that can make, that have made serious runs in the tournament this year, I think it'll be a little bit more of a balanced playing field. Never going to be completely even, never going to be completely fair across the board, but I think Kendall Rogers is right. I do think that the schools that can afford to put more resources towards their baseball program as a way of saying, hey, this is going to bring us better exposure than even our best years of football, I think you see those teams compete. Again, let's look at Coastal Carolina football, right? There's a pathway to the college football playoff. If they are an undefeated, likely conference champion out of the Sun Belt, they could technically make the college football playoff. Likely they're not going to go very far, but they still can make it. But that is such a rare and hard thing to accomplish. Again, one group of 5 team, as of right now, gets to go to the college football playoff. So you're even winning your conference as an undefeated champion does not guarantee you that spot. So your pathway with a program that's already really, really good to exposure and recognition, I think in the College World Series is more forageable path than what you would have with college football. And again, they're still going to put plenty of money towards their football program. I'm not saying they're not going to give it anything, but I think it's in the best interest of a Coastal, best interest of a team like Murray State to put a stronger amount of resources towards their baseball program to be on level with some of the power institutions to allow themselves to be as competitive as possible. And I think we do see that. I think that's very much going to be a real thing. Again, brought up by Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball, to where we could have a lot more surprises in Omaha in the years to come, where maybe being a 4 seed getting there is not the big shocker like it's been up to this point. So we'll certainly have to see. But it's been a fun tournament to follow so far, and can't wait to see the conclusion of everything in these next couple days. UCLA and LSU, by the way, who got started last night, only got through 3 innings before the weather came in, and it was nasty rain. A lot of things going on last night. They get set to resume coming up in about 90 minutes at 11 o'clock to wrap up that game and continue on what's going to be a full day of baseball out there for your Tuesday out in Omaha. We'll switch gears to football coming up next. Bruce Feldman has his story out about Lenore Sellers, and it's given us a little bit of a glimpse, a little bit of an insight into a quarterback that off the field, we don't know a whole lot about. And we'll dive into that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head rolling solo with you on your Tuesday here on The Game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. But did you know they also have great deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can help. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and also no credit check required. That's right. So if you are the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air, comfort you can trust.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you, flying solo here today on your Tuesday. Again, Jack Veltri out of town for about the next week, hanging out in Arizona. I believe he'll be back in next Wednesday. And we'll get his take on the state of Arizona and everything out there when he does come back, as well as whatever's happening in Gamecock sports at that point in time. As of by then, do my math in my head here, I believe we'll be 67 days away from kickoff, as we're 75 days away now. Again, it's inching ever closer. And as I've said many times, when you're coming off the heels of a strong 9-win campaign last year, you're more relevant in the offseason. People talk about you. People put you on lists, all those kind of things, because you are relevant in the landscape of college football based on what you did last year. And a lot of the reason for South Carolina's current relevance revolves around Lenore Sellers. The season that he had last year, especially the last half of it, those last 6 games, and the bowl game there, as well, have gotten a lot of people buzzing about what his potential is this upcoming season and what could be his last year as a Gamecock. Because if he plays well enough, then he could very likely go on and be a first-round draft pick coming up next year in what is a very, very strong quarterback class, by the way. In the process of that, he could find himself on the stage in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony in early December. Again, a lot of football to be played, a lot of things to go out there and prove to make those kind of things happen. But that's what is being talked about when it comes to Sellers going into his second year as a starter here at South Carolina. If you haven't read it by now, Bruce Feldman has a great article really diving in to who Lenore Sellers is off the field a little bit more. For one, I did see a lot of people that are upset about the title of this, which is how Lenore Sellers, a quarterback no one knew a year ago, became a projected top 5 NFL draft pick. And I know within the Columbia bubble and the South Carolina bubble, he was not unknown, and he's somebody that's been buzzed about for a couple years now. But really going into last year, he was a relative unknown. People may have known the name, but they didn't know anything about him. And even people here in South Carolina, I tell this story a lot, but I'll mention it again. Last year in the spring, would have been May of 2024, so after spring practice, where we knew Sellers was going to be the starting quarterback for this team, I was at Darlington for the Goodyear 400 on pit road before the race. Sellers is there. Sellers is on pit road before the race. And he's 6'3". He's a head taller than everybody else. Sticks out like a sore pink thumb. But, nobody was really paying him any attention, right? I literally walked up to him because I had met him before. He'd been here in studio and reintroduced myself, took a picture, and chatted for a moment. But, everybody was walking by him. Nobody was paying him any mind as a soon-to-be starting quarterback in the SEC. So, even to a degree here in the South Carolina bubble, he was a relative unknown. But, again, when you look at the performance that he had on the field last year, he's known by everybody. The McShays of the world, as we played in the past couple of weeks, they're talking about him, what his draft profile is, and all these kind of things, where he can go, and getting a ton of buzz. And I think he's become appointment viewing for people with all the dazzling plays that he had a season ago, the Houdini-like stuff where he got out of trouble and went out there and made plays with his feet, including that legendary touchdown run that he had against Clemson, which we now call third and Sellers. That's going to, whatever his future in football is going to be this year in the pros, whatever it may be, that moment is going to be cemented in Gamecock history for how impressive it was, and obviously the implications that had with South Carolina at the time, still keeping college football playoff hopes alive. All that being said, I feel like we still don't know a lot about Lenore Sellers, the person, right? I mentioned we've had him in studio here. He was on the Gamecock Club Hour a couple of months back with Wes or Chris. I can't remember which one. We hear from him in post-game availabilities and media stuff during the week. He doesn't really let us in, right? There's still a lot about Lenore Sellers, the guy, that we don't really know. And I feel like that's why this Feldman article was so good and so insightful in a lot of ways, because it allowed us to understand him, the person, a little bit more. This is a kid that grew up idolizing Cam Newton. His father being a Panthers fan, saying, hey, you play like and look kind of like Cam Newton, that's who you should be. And that's who Sellers modeled some of his game after. He writes him a letter when he's like 11 years old that his mother apparently never mailed, which you can read in the article, and it's kind of funny to see Sellers' reaction to it, but it humanized him in a lot of ways. There's mention in there that after the Old Dominion game, which was not great, completed under 50% of his passes, and South Carolina narrowly escaped with that win, he was getting killed online. Twitter and TikTok and Facebook, I'm sure Instagram, he's getting nasty messages and stuff like that of people being upset that his debut as a starter did not go as expected. And we hear from these college athletes and coaches all the time, we don't pay attention to the outside noise. They absolutely do. You can't exist in today's world without getting some kind of inkling of what's being said about you on a social media site or by, groups of people, whatever it may be. You're going to become aware of that. And as a college kid at 18, 19 years old, that's a lot to shoulder. It's not as easy as, just ignore it. Don't pay attention to it. You can't do that because it's everywhere. And a guy like Sellers, that weighed on him apparently early on last season. Now it seems like Dow Loggins kind of got him straightened out and said, hey, that comes with the territory, man. You're a quarterback in the SEC. I'm a coordinator in the SEC. They're going to hate us more than they love us sometimes. And he was certainly able to overcome that. And the part that really sticks out, and this is per his father, Norris Sellers, that he was offered $8 million to transfer out. $8 million over 2 years to, I believe it was Auburn, that's been technically revealed as the school that wanted him to come there. And he said no. In today's world of college sports, I talked about this a little bit earlier with Murray State and the portal and all that kind of stuff. With NIL and the portal, and there's a lot of me guys, right? Like looking out for their own best interest in terms of making money. And look, I don't knock a lot of them for doing that. Because if I was 18 years old and somebody said, hey, instead of going to this school, you come to us and I'm going to pay you $3 million more, I would have done it. And I think a lot of people are lying to themselves so they say they wouldn't have. So to hear, and again, this is straight from the horse's mouth of his dad, saying, yeah, we got offered $8 million to go somewhere else, or Lenore's got offered $8 million to go somewhere else, and he turned it down. Like, that's mind-blowing in a way, because it just does not happen in today's world of college sports. Now, we know that the Garnet Trust in South Carolina have taken care of Sellers well when it comes to his compensation through NIL, but it wasn't, for the numbers that we are aware of are not that, right? So he was offered more to go somewhere else, but decided to stay at South Carolina. It does seem like he is one of those, and this is not a story that's being told purely from the perspective of Lenore Sellers or Coach Beamer, because when you hear those kind of things like, this is a guy that isn't worried about money, you kind of almost take those kind of things with a grain of salt, right? But when you're hearing other people around, and again, Bruce Feldman, who there's a reason he works at The Athletic because he's really good at what he does, write it from his perspective, then, it's even more believable that, hey, this guy is not worried about the money. This guy is not worried about only himself. He's looking out for his future, obviously, but the best interest of the team as well, and doing whatever he can to be that kind of leader. And I think that's why people gravitate towards him, right? And look, he's not a rah-rah guy. He's not going to go out there and give a impassioned Ray Lewis speech before the game, more likely than not. But he leads with how he plays, and he leads with the way that he carries himself and composes himself. And I think that's something that everybody can certainly get behind. And you think about the job that he's got ahead of him this year. I think he's shouldering even a heavier load than a season ago because of what this team lost. Tons of NFL caliber talent, tons of guys got drafted, obviously, 5 of them. He's going to have to make up for that until we kind of figure out what the rest of this team is. So he's got to put this team on his back, perhaps more than ever, at least to start the season, until we kind of figure out who the other players are and who the other contributors on this team are going to be, which, again, you have confidence he can do it. You have confidence that with all the other unknowns when it comes to defense, offensive line, all those other kind of things, when you have 16 back there at quarterback, this team's going to be in good shape. And we certainly hope that's going to be the case this upcoming season. We'll dive into this a little bit more with Wes and Chris coming up at the 11 o'clock hour and kind of get their insight and analysis on the progression of Sellers from when they first encountered him to where he's at today, because I think obviously with what they do with recruiting, they can offer an even more intriguing angle on all this. So again, that's coming up a little bit more at the 11 o'clock hour. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour number 1 of the Extra Point. An American legend is returning to his sport. I'll tell you who that is coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you, flying solo on your Tuesday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you, wrapping up the hour. Coming up next, by the way, is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Our friend Gamecock superfan Miss Hopkins going to jump in with me and Chris. Coming up at 10:30. We'll see what she's been up to and get her take on all the things happening in Gamecock sports as we navigate our way through the offseason, getting set for football coming up here in 75 days. So, again, don't miss Miss Hopkins coming up at 10:30 on the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. I mentioned it before the break. An American hero is making a return to his respective sport. We are a little over 2 weeks away from the 4th of July. And every year on the 4th of July, out at Coney Island, the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Contest takes place. Last year felt a little hollow, though, as Joey Chestnut, the 16-time champion, was not allowed to compete. If you remember, he had been temporarily banned from Major League Eating because he had signed a deal with Impossible Foods, which makes plant-based meat products, that Nathan's deemed as competition to their hot dogs. So the greatest eater in the world was barred from the hot dog contest a year ago on the 4th of July. And I think it's funny, yesterday, Sam and I were talking about Caitlin Clark making her return to the WNBA and the fact that over the course of the 5 games that she was out, like, the Fever lost like 1 million viewers on average per game based on when she's actually playing. And I posed the question of who's somebody in another sport that moves the needle right now as much as Caitlin Clark does? And the answer might actually be Joey Chestnut, because last year when he did not compete in the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest, they lost about 20% of their audience from the prior year. That's how much he can move that needle, which is crazy. I'm excited. Look, I know competitive eating grosses people out, or a lot of people out, but maybe it's the inner competitive eater in me. I enjoy watching it every single year. I think it's really funny that Joey Chestnut is this guy that 364 days out of the year we know nothing about, and quite frankly don't really think about all that much. But every year on July 4th, when the clock strikes noon and they put 80 hot dogs in front of him, you know, he becomes the hero of the day, right? And it's not like outside of when Matt Stoney beat him, I believe, in 2015. It's never of, oh, can somebody beat Joey? It's more, oh, can Joey break his own record? He's basically racing himself every single year at this point because of how good he is. You know, we talk about appreciating legends in their prime, right? The Jordans, the LeBrons, the Montanas, the Bradys, the list goes on and on. Appreciate Joey Chestnut while he's still here, while he's still competitive eating. I don't know how long he's going to go. I don't know what the retirement age for a competitive eater is, but he's still very much in his eating prime as of right now. And on July 4th, I fully expect him to win win back his mustard yellow belt, I think is the proper way to put it, and regain his spot, rightfully so, back at the top of the competitive eating world. So again, Joey Chestnut returning to Major League Eating coming up on July the 4th for the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest. That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, it's the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating, and Miss Hopkins joining myself and Chris coming up at 10:30 on your Tuesday on the Game. Tyra Eddie here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. I tell you about it all the time, but I'll remind you once again, especially if you're going on vacation and stuff this summer and you're returning to your house after maybe a week or two, always be mindful of things that may look a little bit different around your home. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues. That's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live without worry going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's our head and Chris Clark along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. It's going to be a busy hour here as our friend Miss Hopkins going to jump in with us here at the bottom of the hour coming up at 10:30, and we'll get her always interesting perspective on whatever's going on around Gamecock sports and all those kind of things. So looking forward to seeing her again a little bit later on the hour.
K-Hop.
K-Hop.
She'll have thoughts.
Yes.
No doubt.
We know she has thoughts. You follow her on Twitter. We are well aware of that.
Yes, looking forward to that. 10:30.
So
Cover for a couple segments in here. It'll be fun.
yeah, that'll be neat. Again, that'll be for the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling Heating. I want to get into a couple other things before we get to that. Coming up at 10:30, starting off, and you and Wes weren't here on Friday, so we didn't get to really dive into any of the stuff that Jeremiah Donati talked about when he was on the postgame show with Jay and Elijah coming up, or this past Thursday. But he obviously talked a lot about revenue sharing, which we are 2 weeks away from it going live, coming up on July the 1st. But one thing he talked about that I think is a really interesting question is, what's this going to look like when it comes to collectives as well as the future of NIL? And we know it's still going to be very much a part of it. And here's what Jeremiah Donati had to say the other day with Jay and Elijah on the postgame show on how that factors into the future when it comes to revenue sharing.
Yeah, it changes it significantly in the sense that, I think one of the questions that fans have, or that I've heard, is that they say, well, how are these NIL deals how are they going to pass? What are we going to do about NIL? And the answer is, well, we're taking on that role of paying the players, because NIL the last couple of years has not been NIL. It's been pay for play. The value of a player has been the value to the team, not the marketing value, which is what NIL was intended to be. So, that's quite a shift, in mindset. And so getting our fans there, getting all fans there, getting our players there, getting our coaches there is just going to take a little time. And so, back to your question about NIL collectives, they're going to look different because they're just not going to be able to operate as they were. There was some statistic as Deloitte was creating this clearinghouse product, this NIL Go. The data they had looked at looking backwards, there was over 70% of those deals would not have passed muster because they were way above market for the value of services just candidly was nowhere even in the ballpark. And so that's going to be a market correction that we're all going to have to just live with and accept and understand that NIL is not going to be as much of a recruiting tool as it has been in the past. And I think, the downstream effects of that is that will tamp down, I think, some of the transfer portal activity we saw, which I think is probably a good thing. One, just because there will be, not as much chaos in the system, but two, we got to remember that all of our student athletes are students as well. And so to think about transferring 3 or 4 or 5 times in your college career is just not setting a young man or a young woman up for success. And so I think, I'm not saying that transfer is a bad idea. I think if there's a better place for you, then by all means you should be able to go explore that. But I think when you're really talking about going someplace and leaving year after year after year, I don't think that's in the best interest of any student athlete.
Again, that's Jeremiah Donati on the postgame show with Jay and Elijah this past Thursday, talking about the future when it comes to collectives and NIL as we get into this new revenue sharing era. And I don't think you've been in here since I've started the Gamecock Word of the Day at 10 o'clock.
I've been in for one session.
One session, yes. Okay. Well, today's word is future because that's what we're talking about, looking ahead, and the future is very much now, or effectively July the 1st, 2 weeks from today, when revenue sharing goes into full effect. And one part there at the very beginning, I appreciate the fact that he did not shy away from saying it was pay for play.
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like a lot of people in his position would try and say, well, it wasn't really that. Like, no, we know what it is. Don't lie to us. And I like that honesty out of Jeremiah Donati. And I think even someone in his position, though, looking at the future of this, can't accurately predict what it's going to look like and how exactly it's going to play out. We know NIL is still going to be a thing. We know it's going to be the addition to what you're paying your players through revenue sharing. But just like when NIL went live 4 years ago, we never foresaw freshman quarterbacks getting signed to $10 and $12 million deals over the course of 3 to 4 years. Like, there's so much about this we still don't know as we get set to enter this new era.
I think a lot of to your point about the word of the day being future, a lot of people, administrators, fans, players, agents, coaches, they've been kind of looking forward to this era. And when I say looking forward, I don't even mean like a hopeful anticipation. I'm looking forward to going to lunch here in a little while. Not
Firehouse
that.
Subs?
Probably, triple stack, couple different options, 16 different locations around the Midlands. But I think it's looking forward to it in the sense of you got to prepare for this thing. The University of South Carolina, the athletics department, they've made, a new hire or two, to prepare for this era. I remember Jeremiah Donati's first appearance with Jay and Elijah, he talked about that, and that's been, what, a month or two ago?
Hey, even farther back than that.
Farther back than that, probably. Time flies. But, hey, we're going to have to see what does our department look like, and we're going to have to get ready for that. And then what does it mean? I do think listening to some administrators, listening to, Greg Sankey, listening to what the Big Ten said, and reviewing a lot of the reporting on this, I will say, I do think there is some projection and some hoping on the part of some people that this is going to settle things down. I do not know if it actually will, though. I agree with Jeremiah Donati wholeheartedly in that collectives are going to have to operate differently. The ones that are set up in a smart way, I think Garnet Trust is one of those. We've seen across the country, like, some collectives shut down because they realized, well, we're not really needed, or the school thought they weren't needed because all they were doing was, we're going to pay this athlete X amount for, to do X.
Sure.
Basically play sports. But, some marketing deliverables in there, whatever it may be. Disguised as pay for play because for a while you had to pretend like it wasn't. Some collectives, though, Garnet Trust being one of them, from what I know, they're set up to help in other ways, whether that's helping to find deals, whether that's off-field stuff. You can still do that. That's also kind of I think something you got to remember. There can still be above the cap NIL deals done.
Yeah.
They're just going to be subject to more scrutiny. Now, let's say there's a collective out there who, in the past, that collective may have contracted a player directly for, the numbers that you mentioned, Tyler, $1 million, let's just say $1 million for a star quarterback.
Yep.
Well, now, they're at most places, the vast majority, they're not going to do that. But are they still going to come with over-the-cap money? 100%. The situation now is that it's going to be subject to more scrutiny. And that goes to the point of, what about the lawsuits?
Yes.
What about when you submit your deal? There's already been some reporting out there. Darren Heitner, the NIL attorney who's assisting Rasul Faison, for example, he said, hey, I've already heard that some deals are being denied by the clearinghouse. Okay, what's the next step? Presumably, maybe it'll be restructured, resubmitted, but it might be that this thing starts getting litigated. So what happens then? Are there some things that are going to become more standardized? Is there going to be a little less chaos? Maybe so. But over the cap, as we've termed it, NIL is still going to be very, very important because, as we know, in college athletics, it's an arms race.
Sure.
And now it's just, okay, we have a $20 million cap on revenue sharing. Cool, that's for revenue sharing. You can't really get around that.
No.
What can we do to go above and beyond? Like Texas, they've already reported, it's already been said. The football program alone, if you subtract what Sark said, it's not $40 million, that's crazy. We need 15 more. So, if you say, okay, well, Texas is planning on spending more on just the football program than the entire rev share for the university.
Yep.
How are they doing that? Over the cap NIL. And some of it will come from brand deals, but I think collectives are still going to be part of that.
And you mentioned that arms race, and it's one of those things that, it's a copycat industry, right? Like all sports are copycat to some degree, where when one team or one program figures something out, then everybody else starts kind of doing the same thing. So you're right. This Deloitte Clearinghouse NIL Go is intended to try and make NIL deals what they originally intended to be, where, hey, Chris Clark is a quarterback at South Carolina. I want to use him for my car dealership commercials. I'm going to pay him $10,000 to do that. And that's very upfront, very legit, because you are using your name, image, and likeness as a quarterback at South Carolina to promote my business. I'm going to pay you because of that. And again, if you have a deal like that, that's straight up. They shouldn't have any problem with it. But I can't say, hey, I think Chris Clark's a great quarterback. I want to play him for my school. Here's $1 million to come play for them. Yep. Those are the things they're trying to tamp down on. And again, those are theoretically the things they're going to say no to, which again will lead to the lawsuits. And I'm interested to see because, again, we don't know what the penalty for not reporting these things is, if there's even one at all. So, okay, how many schools just stop going to this clearinghouse, go under the table, and how many quickly follow suit after that to where we're almost right back where we were 5-6 years ago, where, yeah, technically nobody was getting paid to play college football, but if you're not naive, you know a lot of people are still getting paid to play college football.
Yes, absolutely. And, back in the day, the numbers were so much lower. It wasn't as prevalent. I mean, now it's almost like
it was really
in college
reserved
football
for like the best of the best, right?
The best of the best.
The five-star quarterbacks, the five-star edge, wide receivers, like the huge difference makers or expect to be difference makers were swayed by, again, I go back to the Cam Newton money of, what was it, $200,000 to come play for Auburn or something along those lines. Was. I know, what a steal at this point, right? So it was that kind of stuff that, was relatively minimal in today's sense compared to the money that quarterbacks and players are making now. So, but now everybody's getting paid. Like almost everybody on a Power 4 roster, I would imagine, before revenue sharing, is getting something to some degree, which is something that wasn't a thing years ago.
Well, and I saw a story about college. It was a story, and I can't properly credit. I apologize, but some national reporter wrote a story recently where he talked to a lot of college basketball coaches. And I still think I could end up being proven wrong. I'll be glad to be wrong on this. But there's still some wish casting, I think you could say, on, hey, the numbers are about to go way down. I can tell you from following recruiting, the asks so far have not gone down.
Sure.
They've continued to stay the same or even go up. Let's fast forward to June of 2026. Will the market have settled in terms of the numbers? Maybe so, because frankly, maybe there's not as much money there, as there has been for a variety of reasons. So maybe that'll work itself out. But one thing we do know, if you look at college athletics, if there's even if there is rules, even if there are rules, people try to go around it.
Yeah.
If there's a void, a gray area, people are going to play in that space.
Sure.
And so that's why I just think if there is a mechanism to continue to pay players above and beyond the revenue share, that's what smart programs, collectives, coaches, that's the area that they're going to attack. So I do still think there's a little bit of a hopeful optimism here on the part of some that's thinking this is going to kind of fix and stabilize everything. To a degree, it might. But, man, we still have – we're sitting here a couple weeks away from it, and I'd say we still have more questions than answers of when this hits, what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, and there's always unintended consequences and things we didn't expect that I'm sure we're going to learn in due time in the next year to 5 years on what exactly effect this has on college sports as a whole. But it's definitely a new era and one that, 7-8 years ago we maybe thought was never going to be possible, but yet here we are. Chris, how old were you in 1994?
Depending on the month, I was 8 years old, 7 or 8.
How about June 17th, 1994?
7. My birthday's the end of June.
How well do you remember things from that day?
June 17th, 1994.
Yes, it's a very significant day in sports history.
Yeah, probably not very well.
Let's see how much you remember coming up next as the Gamecock Club Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating, rolls along. Tyler and Chris on your Tuesday on the Game.
All right, everyone, one of our great partners here on the Game, our friends over at Classic Roofing. So if you were looking for a reliable local roofer to help you out with a new roof or any problems that you may have with your existing roof for your home or your business, check out our guys, Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, families that live right here in the Midlands, years of experience, reliable GAF, certified roofers, classicroofingsc.com. Quality craftsmanship, great customer service, simply unmatched by the other guys, so you can feel totally confident in your decision to work with Classic Roofing, you can go get a free estimate at their website, classicroofingsc.com. Check out their reviews or call them 803-590-7870. Roof installations, roof inspections, roof replacements, roof repairs. Each roof carefully worked on by a group of top industry professionals. Again, classicroofingsc.com or 590-7870.
The only substantive development in the investigation into the murder of Simpson's ex-wife was confirmation that she and the other victim were stabbed to death.
And his attorney has already had discussions with police regarding arrangements by which Simpson would turn himself in.
Game 5 of the finals resumes tomorrow night at the Garden in New York.
Tomorrow, a victory celebration for the Rangers, but that's just the beginning.
Tomorrow, the 94th U.S. Open at Oakmont.
With suffocating heat and humidity forecast for the World Cup opener tomorrow.
The football legend remains in the crosshairs.
The prime suspect, he was questioned.
Blood found at the scene.
Startling arrest. The Knicks.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Chris Clark along with you here on your Tuesday. Miss Hopkins will be joining us here coming up at the bottom of the hour. Get her thoughts on what's going on with Gamecock sports. But what you just heard, a little compilation of this day 31 years ago. June 17th, 1994, one of the most infamous days in sports history, of course, largely revolving around the O.J. Simpson car chase that eventually led to the trial. and all that, in addition to many other things going on in the sports world. I played that from the 30 for 30 documentary they did on that a couple years ago that came out during COVID. And I know everybody kind of likes to hyper-focus on the OJ thing because, of course, that was the biggest deal. But as you heard there, a lot of other things happening in the sports world at the exact same time that was happening.
Now that you've played that and reminded me of what was going on, I don't really remember any of those other things, but I definitely remember all the OJ stuff.
Now, what's your perspective on how you remember this? Do you remember watching the chase itself?
Yeah. We had it on. My mom was fascinated by all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think we can all remember even now in 2025, now you can pull up Twitter. Let me see what's going on with the Murdoch trial, whatever.
Sure.
Then it was, you're turning on a TV,
Yeah.
or you're reading the newspaper. And to have that kind of like breathless coverage was a little bit unique.
Yeah.
Because generally it would happen with, Desert Storm or like, big world events like that. And it was just captivating. I do remember being in my house looking at the TV, and I'm kind of like, what's going on? And they're like, O.J. Simpson, who's O.J. Simpson?
Yeah.
He's this football player, and he's got the cops on this chase and a white Bronco and all that stuff. And then, we had on the trial, which seemed to go on for forever.
Mm-hmm.
We had that on like every day.
Sure.
Every day in the house growing up. So, and it was obviously fascinating. It's something that I've actually gone back, when I got older and like understood it a little bit more, you go back and kind of revisit it, and there's a bunch of clips of it on YouTube, Johnny Cochran and F. Lee Bailey and, Judge Ito and Marcia Clark, all those people, Christopher Dart. I actually maybe know a little too much about it, I guess.
Did you watch I think it was the FX series that had Cuba Gooding Jr. as OJ?
I watched a good bit of that. It was good. He had Ross playing. Did he play Robert Kardashian?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
David Schwimmer.
Yep. So I did watch a good bit of that. It was really good.
Now, when you're watching the chase as a kid, was your family watching on NBC where they were splitting the screen between that and Game 5 of the NBA Finals?
That was a big controversy. I don't remember. I do. My introduction to sports, funny enough, given what I do nowadays, we did not really watch college sports growing up in my home, like at all.
Yeah.
We watched the NBA, so I remember. That's why I enjoyed the Pacers-Knicks actually this year in the conference semis.
Mm-hmm.
I used to grow up watching Reggie Miller, and all those guys. But we watched NBA and we watched NFL. So I don't remember specifically the split screen. I just remember during the day, like being at home, like in the summer, during the day.
Mm-hmm.
All the OJ coverage was on in the Clark household.
Yeah.
All the time.
Well, in addition to that day, Arnold Palmer played his final round at the 1994 U.S. Open.
Definitely didn't have golf on in the Clark household.
The commencement of the 1994 FIFA World Cup with Oprah Winfrey and then President Bill Clinton in attendance. The New York Rangers were celebrating their 1994 Stanley Cup Finals victory with a parade on Broadway. In Game 5 of the NBA Finals between the Rockets and the Knicks. And then Ken Griffey Jr. that same day, tying Babe Ruth's record for most home runs hit before June the 30th in the 65th game of the MLB season that would end up being ended early because of the strike.
A
lot of things happened on June the 17th.
Ken Griffey Jr. was actually, that's funny too, he was like my favorite player growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And unless they were just on national TV, like I never got to watch the Seattle Mariners play. But for some reason, I loved Ken Griffey Jr., so I had remember his Upper Deck 1989 card? I had that. I still have it, actually, back home.
Is that valuable?
Well, it was back then. Back then, it was worth like $100, which might as well have been $1 million.
Sure.
And every now and then, like every few years, I would look. I remember one time it went down to like $20, and then during COVID, it like shot back up. I have no clue what it's at now.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to buy, I don't have it PSA graded, but it's in good shape.
Hold on.
If you want to buy it.
Let's see. When was the last time you checked on this?
Oh, it's been years. I mean, during COVID, it was probably 2020, 2021, I checked on it.
All right.
But he was like my favorite player. And so another childhood core memory is I would play on N64, King Griffey Jr., Major League Baseball.
Nice.
And I would play as the Braves, and I would always force through a trade. I had to give away the farm.
Sure.
For King Griffey Jr., so I put him on my team.
You just had to trade the whole team?
I mean, you had to give up. Like, you would have to give up, like, a starting pitcher, a couple of starting position players, but I would get him. And he had the really big batter's circle to where you could match it with the ball when it came in.
Mm-hmm.
He would mash.
Now, is the rookie card you have, is he facing the camera or is he looking away from it?
He's facing the camera.
Okay.
This is the Upper Deck 1989, I want to say.
And this is the rookie card, right?
He's got one of the old school Mariners. It's an up close, like a close up. There's another rookie card that was never as valuable.
Okay, so I must be looking at the valuable one that's valued at $3,800 right now.
Really?
I'm looking at it on Fanatics. It says Upper Deck, 1989, King Griffey Star Rookie. Did it have the star on it?
Mm-mm. Well,
okay.
No, there's no star.
Well, maybe
I'll
that's
show
the
it to you during break. He's got the bat on his shoulder.
Okay, that's what I'm looking at.
He's got the blue Seattle Mariners hat.
Might be able to get a couple bucks for that thing, man.
I mean, I'm seeing it on eBay and stuff. It's like, it's in the $100 range.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you need some gas money, boom, there you go.
If anybody wants to buy it,
there you go.
Firehouse Substance. I don't know.
Clark.
Are we allowed to conduct business on here? I don't know.
I don't think we can. We'll see if K-Hop wants to buy it. We'll talk to her coming up next as the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating rolls on your Tuesday on the game.
All right, everyone, the presenting sponsor, as always, of the Gamecock Club Hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays here on the game, Krantz Cooling and Heating. Since 1983, the Krantz family has been helping and serving homeowners and business owners all around the Midlands with outstanding HVAC services. So no matter what your problem is, if you need a repair, if you've got some issues going on, you're not sure, if you just want to take a look under the hood, so to speak, at what's going on with your HVAC system, or if you know for sure that you need something new, you can trust them. I've had them out to my home multiple times. They've fixed issues for me. They've installed new things for me. So impressed that when my mom moved out to the Irmo area, I had them go out there too. Justin Krantz, general manager, keeping it all going. Great customer service. Outstanding technicians, KrantzCooling.com, KRANTZ, cooling with a K.com, or 672-3224.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's our head, Chris Clark, welcoming back in our friend, Miss Hopkins, K-Hop. Is this your first time in the studio here?
Oh,
there we go.
Hey, now I'm on. Now we're
go.
hot. No, I think this is my second time in the studio.
Okay, right. Last time I was on with you, we were at, I think it was Better Homes and Gardens a couple years ago.
Yeah, that little realty place.
Yes.
Yes.
But welcome. A lot's probably changed since the last time you were in here.
Yes, it has. Y'all are like upgrading.
We have a full-scale TV studio out there now.
Right. I mean, y'all are big time.
We were looking at that.
We're trying to be.
Yeah.
We have a good engineer. He's getting things done around here.
Yeah, shout out. Doing awesome
Well,
stuff.
it looks nice. I can't wait to see who y'all have out there.
Yeah, we are too.
Maybe you.
Maybe.
All right, so what's been going on in your world of Gamecock sports lately?
Oh, Gamecock sports is crazy right now. A lot of stuff going on with, obviously, NIL, as everyone knows, with those changes, but I'm excited about it. But, like, how about Gamecock softball? Let's remember the last time I was here, we did talk about Gamecock softball, and what a change.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm so impressed with Ashley Chastain Woodard. Like, that's just incredible to do in 1 year's time. So I'm excited for the future of that. We get to meet her. I get to meet her this Saturday. She's going to be a guest for an event at CB18, which will be fun. Actually, that event will be giving all the donations and everything from that event's going back to Gamecock softball. So that'll be fun. You know, the girls need some love too. We always talk about the boys and everybody else, but we've been really trying to help them out because they didn't have as much support. Y'all know how that goes, right?
Yeah.
Also, baseball. Wow, portal. So that's going on. That's a big time. It's Ethan Petrie's birthday today.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
wow.
Pet. Also, he's got a new Ribo hat. I saw your Ribo hat, but
Yes.
Pet has his own.
I did not know this.
Wait, like his own?
Yeah, like his
line?
own like pet hat from Ribo. It's like super cute. It's kind of like the one Tyler has on, except it's beige with a flat panel. Jeffrey's going to be upset with me because I don't know the exact name of the hat. But yeah, it's his. Like they collaborated and got that going. So it's very interesting. But maybe, I don't know. I think it released yesterday, maybe.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so that's going on. Football's ramping up. Had the Beamer Ball not long ago, which was an absolute blast. Just so much going on with Carolina in general and Gamecock sports. It's a good time to be a Gamecock.
75 days away until kickoff, in case anybody's counting. Have you been keeping up with the trivia I've been doing with Wes and Chris every day in the countdown to kickoff?
Tyler, if I'm honest, no. My job at the schoolhouse does not allow me to listen readily to the radio.
Fair enough.
But Jeffrey usually keeps me up, and I will tell you that I will probably embarrass him at trivia.
Really? You're a good trivia player?
No. Like, I embarrass him. Like, he is excellent at trivia. He knows many non-essential pieces of information, but they're always good at trivia. Why? Do we have one today?
Well, I have to wait until Wes is in here at 11, but I do a question every single day, countdown to kickoff, pertinent to whatever year it is. So 75 days away from kickoff. Today will be 1975. I don't know. I don't know how good you'd be with trivia for Gamecock football back in 1975.
Well, Tyler, I was not alive then.
I wasn't either.
Neither was Tyler.
I'm just trying to say, don't imply that I was alive.
No, I was not.
But 75, I don't know that I would be great with it. Jeffrey probably will.
Yep.
Oh,
he's
he can go way back?
Yeah, that's his kind of thing. I call him Media Guide Hopkins.
Maybe Wes needs that as his phone a friend so he can catch up to you,
That
Chris.
would be who it would be. I would pick Jeffrey.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We should do a maybe you can come up during the break with a bonus for K-Hop.
Yeah, I can do that.
Trivia question.
Oh, yeah, and make it one I can answer.
Okay.
Yeah, don't make it from 1975.
Yeah,
Tyler keeps, I'm like, Tyler, can we, as the days count down, he keeps just going back in time. And I'm like, we can't, in a few days, we're going to be during the 1967 season.
It's about learning as well. We're learning things about these older teams that we didn't otherwise know.
Actually remember some of the answers.
Well, and I really have, what's the guy's name? Albert Rabin, I think is his name. He wrote a really good book on Gamecock football history. Have y'all read it?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's really good. He wrote it, and he sent me a copy of it signed, and it has a lot of that information in it. I do read a lot of Gamecock books. I'm getting better at the historical part of it, but that doesn't stay in the top of my memory.
I just like tripping them up more than anything else. I think that's where I get my most enjoyment out of it.
Well, that's fun. Watching other people struggle, Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun time, right?
He does enjoy it. He does enjoy it.
You got to get them where you can.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit. We might get back to what has been going on, but we are 75 days away. So let's talk about football. First of all, are you going to Atlanta for game one?
I would love to go to Atlanta for game one. I am a fan of away games. Some people that travel with me are not. And so maybe we'll be there for that. I would love to be there for that. I'm excited about it. I think it'll be a great opening game with who we're playing and just the history between, the Beamers and all. I think that'll be a really cool game.
Now, would you rather this game be in Blacksburg?
I would rather it be in Blacksburg because I would absolutely love to experience Inner Sandman.
See, I'm very anti-neutral site games in the regular season.
I do not like neutral site games either. I also wish bowl games were in their stadiums. It just has so much more culture and atmosphere.
Sure.
Than a neutral site does. So if it was in Blacksburg, definitely we'd be there. Atlanta,
It seems like that'll happen one day. That they'll put. Do they have a Virginia Tech home and home on the schedule?
28?
Yeah, later in the 2020s.
I really think that. I really think that.
Yeah.
No, you're 2028.
Well, 2026. I'll look that up, actually. 2026, Miami.
Ooh.
You can go down to Miami.
Yeah.
I've
never been to Miami.
I hadn't either.
So home and home with Miami, 26, 27. North Carolina, 28, 29. NC State, 30, 31. Virginia Tech, 2034 and 2035.
Jesus, I'll be riding my little rascal to the game. Golly. But, how could you not experience Inner Sandman? That's one of those bucket list college football fan items. You got to check that off, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
you're a fan of away games. Somebody else in your traveling party is not. Will you go to any away games this year?
I would love to go to LSU.
It's a good trip. I've done it.
Yeah, well, again, that's a bucket list place, I think. Calling Baton Rouge on a Saturday night, that would, you got to do that, I think.
So
he's not anti all away games. It's probably more accurate neutral site games. He's with Tyler. He loves that. We've gone to other games like the Egg Bowl and experienced that. Good college football, we're good with all of that. But LSU, I think, would be definite on my list. And I do want to go to the Grove at some point in my life.
I've done Oxford as well.
Yeah.
We were so last night. My daughters are both into cheer, and there is some. I think it's on Netflix, either Netflix or Disney Plus, whatever. There's some cheerleading show she was watching, and it was about the Ole Miss cheer team and a high school cheer team, and the Ole Miss coach has now moved to. She's the head coach at Kentucky. She's from Lexington. Anyway, we were watching that, and it's funny. The show was back in 2019, so they were talking about the 2018 South Carolina Ole Miss game, and we were at that game. That was the game where Debo Samuel took back the opening kickoff.
Debo.
Yeah, wild game. But anyway, point is, I was talking to my daughter about it. We're actually going again this year to Oxford, so we were kind of, hey, we went to that city grocery in the square, and Oxford's a really cool place.
Yeah.
I would really like to go to that one. I have no desire to go to Mizzou at all.
Well,
it has no interest to me.
Across the country.
It just doesn't interest me. Now, we've done A&M before. Love that.
That's
a great atmosphere, great tailgating prior there. It's a great one. Been to Tennessee, done several of them, but LSU would definitely be one on my list. And we had our 20th anniversary last week. And
congrats.
Right. He's put up with me that long, a saint. And I said, why don't we not do something for that and maybe do a big away football trip?
Yes.
That's way more probably us. So maybe I could talk him into LSU.
So if you're going to LSU, you want that to be a night kick? You want to experience Death Valley?
Yes, I want to experience it night, and I'm going to call Baton Rouge with them, and Jeffrey's probably going to be mad, and that's fine. That's fine, but you can't not Garth Brooks that.
Even if that is less than advantageous for South Carolina?
All right, I'll go with you on that. I'll go back another time for them to beat someone else at night.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay. Fair enough.
But we could do Marucci before then at LSU because isn't that on site?
What is it?
Isn't it Marucci? Don't they have a place on site at LSU? Because that guy went to LSU. Marucci, the bat company.
Oh, I don't know.
Tyler? Am I crazy on that, Tyler?
I've never been to Baton Rouge, so I do not know.
I think that's accurate.
It sounds like something you would know, though. Yeah, Marucci has locations. I feel like you would know that.
That's where he went to school, kind of like Nike in Oregon or Under Armour and Maryland, and then the Easton guys got one. Like, all these people have their give back. We need somebody to do something big here at Carolina and have a big old company.
That's true.
That would be helpful.
Well, Wes's theory was he thinks that fans should want the LSU game to be at night because, I mean, it is something to behold. It's keyed up. But then go in there and beat them at night.
I don't hate that.
It'd be a big win.
I would lose my mind, my voice, my sanity, all of it, I think. I mean, to go in there and win at night would be incredible.
We're making a good pitch to Jeffrey right now.
We're making a really good pitch to Jeffrey.
Very
We're also
compelling.
making a good pitch to the people who schedule game times. That if y'all are listening, please let's get that going at night. Also, heat, that would be helpful. Louisiana's a bit hot. Also, I think we could get some good food down there.
Can confirm. Very good food.
Yeah, some good food.
Stay in New Orleans. A lot of people, that's what I did. Stay in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Hang out down there, and then day of the game, just mosey on over to Baton Rouge.
Yeah, scurry, if you will.
Do some tailgating.
We're planning our trip out for.
Right.
This is easy.
I mean, honestly, it's very easy.
Well, we're not the ones that have to spend money on it, though. That's the problem.
Yes,
we're going to do a GoFundMe. Get K-Hop to Louisiana. I'm totally kidding, everyone.
We'll have more with K-Hop coming up as a wrap-up. The Gamecock Club Hour coming up next here on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's our Chris Clark hanging out with K-Hop for a few more minutes here as we wrap up the 10 o'clock hour. Of course, 75 days away from kicking the season off. But year number 2 for Lenore Sellers as a starter. We're going to get into the Bruce Feldman article a little bit in the next hour. What's the ceiling? What's Sellers going to accomplish in year number 2?
I don't think he has a ceiling, but that was a great article. I enjoyed that article, but I think it speaks a lot to the culture that's being built here, that he's still here and staying here. And I'm the sunshine pumper of positivity on Twitter, and I catch a lot of flack for that because I'm just like, we can go undefeated every year, right? But I do think we really have a solid year coming back, and I think it's great that Nick Harbor has been here for the whole off season. You heard his little podcast or whatever you want to call it with Savelle, and he was like, I know all the routes now. I know all the things because I've been able to be here and be fully invested. I think that's helpful for us. And my guy Oscar is going to step right into that role at running back and some other things. So I think collectively, Lenoris is obviously incredible and what a great human as well. But I think they've done a great job of bringing some folks together cohesively. For us to have a good year. I don't want to say, I think we can win them all in the right way. Anybody can win on any given day. Isn't that the thing, Tyler?
Absolutely. By the way, Oscar may have to be RB1 if this eligibility thing doesn't get straightened out in the next 75 days.
Hey, we don't have to say may. My man can do it, okay? He can do it. He's a good. Also, let's talk about the great guy he is. What a great character human being.
Sure. He is.
We do love good people,
Absolutely.
So is Nick Harbor your official K-Hop breakout player for 2025?
Oh, that's tough.
I figured you had thought about this.
I could go with Nick as being a breakout guy. Also, our new center,
Big Boaz.
Yeah, big fan of the big boys. You know that. So I'm hoping for a good year for that. But I could go with Nick with a YCK. I love the different spelling. I think it could be a breakout year for him. I think he has big goals for himself and wants to kind of set a standard for himself here, knowing that maybe he hadn't necessarily been his best the last couple of years. But I feel like he's dialed in. I would love to see him have a fantastic year.
Well, so do Nick and Lenoris have a good enough year collectively where they both move on to the NFL after this year?
Sad panda. They're both eligible, yeah. I mean, yeah, that would break my heart, but I would love to see him stay another year. Everybody would love to see him stay another year. That's selfish. That's the Carolina in us and seeing a good connection like that. But also you have to look out for themselves and their future. I think they could both really make a name for themselves to be ready for the draft. You're right. And then we'd throw a really good party here, right? Not here at this location, no.
If they're good enough, then that means it'll probably be a fun year, I would imagine.
And that's right. If they're that good and heading to the draft, that should be a good year for Carolina football.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you look back at last year and all the guys that, got drafted or got opportunities, and it's like, well, you can kind of draw a line between that and, how good the team was. So what game are you looking forward to the most? Whether or not you get to go to these, we've now moved from maybe the possibility of one road game.
We're going everywhere.
We're definitely going to 2 games, but
definitely not Mizzou still.
So not looking forward to Mizzou.
No, I always hate the Mizzou game. It's always such a crappy. Sorry. It's just
That's
such
fine. That's
rough.
a safe word.
That word's okay.
That's a safe word. Thank God. Mistletoe. Aside from that, it's just always such a crazy game between us and Mizzou.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to be the homer right now. I always look forward to the Clemson game the most because the bragging rights of it all. And, we live in the upstate and I'm surrounded by orange. So every year that we can beat them is a fantastic year for me. And it's just always a big game. It's a big game locally. It's just a big game for the state. It does a lot for the university. I also have loved how some of our guys that aren't from the state are buying into that and seeing that rivalry. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And it's the last game of the season though, so it's always bittersweet because that's it.
Last 30 seconds here at the end of the season. What all is this team going to accomplish?
I think Nick's going to set some records for himself.
Okay.
I think we're going to win at least 7 games, hopefully 8, be bowl eligible, and actually win a bowl game this year.
Sounds good to me. K-Hop, we appreciate you hanging out, and you are always welcome to come back.
Thank you, Tyler.
Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on your Tuesday on the Game.
All right, as you've heard here on the show, 75 days until South Carolina's 2025 football season. So if you're already thinking about how you're going to watch all the games, if you're not in Willie B, if you're not on the road, if you got to stay at home, you want to be as comfortable as possible, and you want to make sure you have the very best setup. You can reach out to our friends over at Integrated Media to do that. IntegratedMediaInc.com or 803-948-8327. Michael, Nathan, the team, they've been to Wes's home. They've been to my home. You can trust them for anything that you need from an audio-visual standpoint, whether it's something as simple as mounting a new TV. They can source the equipment for you. You don't have to browse the internet, thousands of options. You don't have to go to the big box name brand stores. They can source it. They can install it. Everything from mounting a TV to wireless speakers to making sure your internet is in tip-top shape so you can stream all the action this season. IntegratedMediaInc.com or 803-948-8327.
Uh, 11 o'clock. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Hay, Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell along with you now on your Tuesday here on the game. Appreciate K-Hop once again for hanging out with us there for the last couple minutes of the Gamecock Club Hour. And guys, she's confident. Thinks we're going to accomplish a lot this year. Though she did set the win total around 7 to 8, which I did think was surprisingly a little bit low. I thought she was going to go higher than that.
Well, there's a difference between, she is definitely an optimist, which I actually appreciate. There's enough negativity in the world right now. But, you can't come out every single year and be like, yep, going to win every game.
Gamecock Larry could.
Okay, true. Good point. Man, miss hearing him call in with that.
We sure do.
We're going to beat Clemson? Yeah, I love it. You can be – she's right, though, in that any team – maybe not this far, but like the whole any given Saturday type thing. Like, man, look at South Carolina's last season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had some games in LSU and Bama that late did not go their way. They also had some games that late did go their way, right? And there was a big difference between, that team could have easily made the playoff, or that team could have won 6 games.
Sure.
Even game 1, Old Dominion, which was covered in the Lenore Sellers story, some that we're going to talk about here. So
yep,
it's okay to be optimistic. No problem.
Yep. Nothing wrong with optimism, right, Wes?
Yeah, I appreciate it. And hey, I will say this though, man. If there was ever a year to maybe boost your projected win total, I think you can make a case, right? Like some years when fans say stuff like that, you're just like, man, we're talking about some blind optimism here. Like it's gonna have to be in every given Saturday on literally every Saturday for this team to have a chance. And I think as long as South Carolina has the guy I'm sure we're going to talk about today in Lenore Sellers, then they're going to go into every game, but arguably with either the best quarterback in that game, or at least there's a conversation for having the best quarterback.
And we'll get into what Bruce Feldman wrote about Lenore Sellers on The Athletic the other day in just a moment here, but it is 75 days away from kickoff. It is time for another trivia question. K-Hop did extend an offer, by the way, Wes. If you need some help, her husband is very good at trivia, and he can be your phone a friend if you get stuck on some of these questions.
I do appreciate the generosity. I do know her husband, Jeffrey, great guy. I feel like that'd be a little bit cheating. But if we get to that point, then maybe I'll have to do that.
Only Wes gets access to the phone a friend line?
I offered it to him because he's behind right now. You're leading 6 to 4.5.
You hear that, Wes?
So, I was about to say, but it's not like I'm getting, this is not Oklahoma against South Carolina in the first quarter. Like
we got a long way to go.
I'm hanging in there, right?
We've also been doing this for this trivia contest for a while, and we have like 9 combined points.
I'm like the NDA. I'm trying to adjust the rules to make it a competitive series,
AKA rigged.
Yeah, you can put your tinfoil hat on for that.
What are the other Who Wants to Be a Millionaire things? You had phone a friend.
Wasn't there one like person on the street or something?
50-50.
50-50.
Really? That must be a newer version. I'm not familiar with person on the street.
No, it was poll the audience.
Poll the audience. That's what it is.
That can be dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple ways.
We could fire our subs text line and hit us up if you know the answer type thing. Okay. All right. Sorry, Tyler.
Ready?
We were just delaying the inevitable miss of the question.
All right. 1975, as we were 75 days away from kickoff, South Carolina defeated Clemson for the second time in 3 seasons back in 1975, earning the largest margin of victory in a South Carolina win in series history. We're going to Price is Right this. What was that margin of victory for South Carolina over Clemson back in 1975?
Largest margin of victory in a South Carolina win or in the series?
In a South Carolina win in the series.
All right, just making sure.
Closest guess gets it.
31 points.
All right, Wes?
I actually know the score on this one.
Okay.
What?
He did his research. He studied this time.
No. This is like a known. Like this is not an obscure trivia.
It is to me.
Like.
So, what's the guess?
It's not a guess.
I was actually sitting here making sure I didn't. You know how when the guy has y'all seen the Wheel of Fortune episode where the entire puzzle is spelled out and the guy says the wrong he mispronounces one of the words and he doesn't get it.
Oh, brutal.
I was like, I know the score. I was like, let me make sure my math is correct. But the score was 56-20.
Okay, so that would mean
to be 36.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. 36 points. The largest margin of victory for South Carolina over Clemson in the series back in 1975.
Color me impressed.
Yeah.
So, in keeping with Wheel of Fortune tradition, I get, you know how the third place person back in the day used to get Rice-A-Roni?
No.
Did
they really?
Yes. Because Rice-A-Roni was like a sponsor.
Was it the San Francisco treat, right?
We have some well, it was. We have some consolation gifts for you, and they're like, promotional consideration brought to you by Rice-A-Roni. So I literally picture them getting like, here's 2 boxes of Rice-A-Roni.
Yeah.
Have fun.
While Wes is winning like the Hawaii trip and like the sports car, you get Rice-A-Roni, which, you could get the grocery store for 50 cents a box or whatever.
Hey, yeah.
But at least you're walking away with something.
That's right.
What do you want your consolation prize to be?
I'm good with Rice-A-Roni. I like it just fine. I'll take it. I don't deserve anything because I'm impressed with Wes. And then he's rubbing it in like this is a very well-known. I'm like, well, I don't know. What's so well-known about it other than it being the largest margin? Like, did somebody go off or something?
No, it's just the largest margin of victory against Clemson. So
right.
And then, I feel like it popped up frankly, it popped up during Clemson's streak. When they were like kind of hammering South Carolina, and I want to say it popped up during one of those Spurrier games where, Carolina was just dominant, and it was like, all right, this was a dominant effort, our biggest margin of victory since that game, basically.
And if I'm looking at it, so the second biggest margin of victory, Carolina had a 33-0 win back in 1925. And I'm trying to see here. So Clemson does have the largest margin of victory in the series at 51-0 back in 1900. But for South Carolina's sake, 36 points back in 1975 is the winner there. We'd love to see them outdo that this year.
So I was asking you, Wes, if somebody went off. Indeed, somebody did. That somebody was Jeff Grants. Scored 6 touchdowns in the game. 5 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. Pretty good day for Jeff.
Pretty good.
Man, he was a good one.
So the score now, Chris, losing ground.
Yep.
6-5.5.
Ooh, that close?
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys starting to heat up a little bit. You're starting to get these questions right. I think, made them a little bit easier than I had in the beginning. So we might have a good little shootout going over the course of the next 74 days.
Stay tuned tomorrow for a hard question from the 1974 season.
Well, we'll see. I don't look at the next season until we're done with the show, so there's no telling what it could be. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes I have to dig for it, but that's what makes it fun, and hopefully, like myself, everybody's learning a little bit as we're going along with this as well.
I got my back against the wall. No. See how I do.
You're winning.
Yeah, but I'm feeling the pressure. I'm going to crack.
You don't have any margin for error.
That's right.
Well,
Wes is on a heater.
It could come down to the last day on that Friday before they play Virginia Tech. Will be 2 days until kickoff at that point in time, where somebody has to pull off some kind of miracle to either tie or win. You might have to pull a third and Sellers out of your back pocket a little bit, like you did against Clemson to help them win that game back last fall. Speaking of Sellers, we'll dive into what Bruce Feldman did have to say about Lenoris in his article with The Athletic the other day, coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls on your Tuesday on the Game.
Tyler and I were just talking about lunch earlier, and he asked if I was going to go to Firehouse Subs. In fact, I am. It's going to be delicious. FirehouseSubs.com or download the Firehouse Subs app. Locations all around the Midlands, so no matter where you are, you can pretty much be assured there's going to be a Firehouse Subs close to where you live. They got a new limited time offering for a sub. Been looking forward to this one. Our guy Larry Chandler, owner and operator of all the Midlands Firehouse Subs, was telling us about it recently. It is the Smokin' Barbecue Triple Stack. Multiple meats. Got the slaw. Got the barbecue sauce in the classic or in the Carolina Gold. So go check it out. Order now before it's gone. FirehouseSubs.com, or again, my favorite method, download the Firehouse Subs app because you can get yourself a free account. And every time you use the Rapid Rescue to go to order yourself lunch, dinner, or even your catering orders, you can earn rewards towards free future Firehouse Subs, which is awesome. FirehouseSubs.com or the Firehouse Subs app.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you on your Tuesday here on the game. Of course, a lot of buzz around Lenore Sellers this offseason that leads to a lot of people focusing on him, writing about him, talking about him, and the latest of those being Bruce Feldman, The Athletic, putting out his article, giving a little bit of a glimpse into Lenore Sellers, the person. You know what I mean? We know a lot about him as the player. We've had him in studio. You guys have talked to him plenty of times for Gamecock Central, but I feel like the off-the-field person is not as well known. And I think this article did a really good job of bringing some of that to light and kind of understanding Lenore Sellers when he's away from the football field. There's a lot in here, and I kind of want to get to things piece by piece. I really want to start off, though, with what the article mentions where he kind of first came on South Carolina's radar at a camp back in the summer of 2022, a 7-on-7, as a kid that was obviously from just up the road in South Florence. From y'all's perspective, covering recruiting as closely as you do, when did he come on y'all's radar, and how did the process of him coming to South Carolina evolve before he eventually, committed and signed here?
I saw Lenore Sellers for the first time in September of 2021. So I think that would make him a sophomore, right? Yep. He ended up, I think that was the year he ended up getting hurt after 3 or 4 games and missing a bunch of time. But they played at Irmo, so Nikki Manwari was on that team. Good Irmo team. And South Florence put up 63-28. And I'm sitting there going, all right, I knew who he was.
Sure.
But I'm like, all right, this is making me a believer because he was, throwing the ball all over the place, running it.
That would have been his junior year, right? Yeah, 2021.
I don't know. Whatever.
He's freshman in 23, so junior year of high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was impressive, and then we saw him a few other times, saw him at South Carolina's camp, in the summer at a 7-on-7, and you're sitting there going, all right, this guy looks really, and then you go look at the numbers, and then you talk to people who know him, talk to his high school coach, talk to his trainer, Ramon Robinson, who's referenced in the story. And you're like, all right, somebody tell me why this kid is committed to Virginia, and not there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but you expect, you look at the offer list and it's not really what you would think either. He didn't have Ohio State and Georgia and Bama and all these other schools, after him. And, it took, it's very upfront in the story too. That's certainly my recollection of it. It took South Carolina quite a while, and they kind of kept things alive and then went in there and got him at the end. And for a guy like Lenoris, it was a hard decision. Even to stay in state and play in the SEC, for him, a guy who's loyal, that wasn't an easy thing to do. And, the way I think of it now, it's like, man, knowing what we know now, even during recruiting, you're going, all right, they've got to take this kid or try to get him. And now knowing what we know and seeing what we've seen, it even more drives that point home. Like, what if Lenore Sellers was playing at Syracuse right now? It's just remarkable to think about that even being a possibility.
Yeah, that actually could be one of those things we've talked about in the past of one decision potentially rewriting so many different things. Depending on what his career ends up being this season as well, man, who knows how that could have changed the landscape of not just South Carolina, but maybe even college football if they go on some crazy run this year. I think – so first of all, I remember seeing Lenoris at a 7-on-7, I think before he kind of emerged as a known guy. And I just remember thinking he had a huge arm. And I remember kind of being like, all right, who is this kid? Oh, that's the Sellers kid. Heard a little bit about him. But he's out there at 7-on-7, so there's no run game aspect. There's no QB run. You're just throwing passes, right? And my actual first recollection was watching him warm up, and he was throwing darts basically so hard that his receivers couldn't catch it. These high school receivers just could not deal with the velocity of his passes. So that was kind of – but here's the thing about quarterbacks. We see a lot of big-armed quarterbacks at 7-on-7. It doesn't mean you can go be what Lenore Sellers is. So it was just kind of all right, maybe this is a guy to keep an eye on for the future. Guys, this article has a lot to unpack. I got some texts yesterday from some people that were kind of involved early on, either media-wise or scouting community. And they were kind of like, I see what the article is saying, but they had a couple of like bones to pick with it. And I think Lenoris's story, though, is kind of intriguing because it's one of those things where multiple things can be true at once, right? Like, did Lenoris Sellers come out of nowhere? Isn't that the headline there, or in there it says literally he came out of nowhere being a top 5 pick, or that nobody knew who he was?
Nobody knew, yeah.
The article is how Lenoris Sellers, a quarterback no one knew a year ago, became a projected top 5 NFL pick. And I think you're right. The no one knew is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, think about the conversations going into last year about quarterbacks in the SEC. He was put at the bottom of the list, and it's hard to argue with that because he hadn't really done a whole lot in his college career besides a few plays here and there in garbage time back in 2023. And obviously, we talk about him a lot because we're within this bubble, within the state. People obviously knew him pretty well, but I do feel like outside of South Carolina, he was not getting a whole lot of attention. And for people like Bruce Feldman that cover the sport on a national level, you know, he's somebody that probably came on their radar later than most.
Yeah, I mean, people around Columbia knew who he was, you know. And so from a national standpoint, well, there are a lot of good quarterbacks in the league, you know, going into last year. I mean, Quinn Ewers, and, you know, there's a bunch of them. And so you only had seen glimpses of what Lenoris Sellers could do just from, what was that, you know, the Vandy run, the pass, the touchdown pass to Tyshawn Russell against Furman. But you knew what he did in high school. You know, if you saw him in the Shrine Bowl even, you know, right before he enrolled at South Carolina, you knew this kid had immense talent. And even after, you know, the Old Dominion games referenced in there where he certainly did not have a great game by any means, you know, that entire game was kind of a struggle. They escaped with the win, all as well. But, you know, the first start for a guy of Lenoris Sellers' capability, I remember, Wes, you can probably speak to this. People are like, why are y'all hyping up this kid so much? You know, or even game 2, game 3, why were y'all hyping this kid up so much? By the end of the season, that had quieted down, you know, because you see, like, he has physical gifts that nobody else has. And on top of that, he's a great kid. He's got, you know, he's got everything upstairs that you want. He's even keel. He's smart. Like, he's got the total package. And you just heard it from enough people, and then you saw it for yourself physically to where you kind of became a believer. It was just about him. Everybody's got to develop on the field. And he did that, I think, in short order. And that was his first year starting. He's got a lot more to do. But I think Lenoris was on people's radar around here for sure. It did take him a while to get into kind of the national spotlight, especially at the end of the Clemson game. You know, people looked at that, saw what he did. They saw how South Carolina and how he finished the season, how strong they finished out the season. And that's just kind of always how it is if you don't come in as, you know, a Quinn Ewers, like as an example earlier, the number 1 quarterback in the country. Now, Lenoris was still pretty highly rated. This isn't one of those deals where you can say he was a 0-star. You know, I mean, On 3, I think, was highest in the industry on him. But I think, what was he, a 4-star prospect on maybe 3 of the 4 major services? So it's not like he was this complete unknown or somebody who walked onto the program. You can't really go that far.
Well, I think that's what makes it a little bit interesting, guys, is that you really can't put any of this into a box. Like, it's not just that guy was a 2-star, he had no offers and started as a walk-on. But at the same time, you know, you can make the argument. So I think a couple of things there. One, you could say, well, yes, he was under-recruited in terms of the teams that were going after him. Like, you know, like Chris said, Virginia early on, Syracuse. I tell you, the team that it's very interesting. I was told incredibly late that never quite made their move but was connected to him was actually Georgia. And there was a thought that if Georgia offered, then that might sort of push other teams to offer. And so it's kind of weird because you look at it and you say, well, he wasn't very highly recruited. He wasn't very highly rated. But then if you go back and look, you'll see, well, no, 4-star, 4-star, 4-star. But there's even another layer to that. A lot of those ratings, I feel like, were put in place at the very end.
Yep.
Like, this is not a guy who was highly recruited or highly rated throughout the entire process. Now, I know Charles Power probably has the data to say I'm wrong on that. I know Charles was way ahead of the curve, but just in terms of the overall recruiting industry, this is not a guy that was pegged as a 4-star very early in the process, So it's just a very atypical recruitment. I do think to Feldman's kind of defense, he's more looking at it like, all right, lots of schools locally have guys that have created some hype in practice. Until you go do it in a game, until you go show you are him, then essentially it doesn't matter. And I do think recruiting has become mainstream. So if Lenoris was the number 5 quarterback in the country for most of the process, and South Carolina beat out Georgia or Tennessee or Florida or whoever to land him, then he would already be a little bit more in the collective conscience of, hey, let me keep an eye on this guy. What's that Lenoris Sellers doing? Let me check in. The talk here nationally was all about Spencer Rattler, and then all about the fact that Spencer Rattler was no longer here.
By the way, in this article, talks about that 7-on-7 camp where he was really kind of discovered by South Carolina. Jaden Davis, the 2024 at the time number 1 overall quarterback, was kind of the hot commodity in terms of what was being looked at that camp. And it's interesting to look at the comparisons. Sellers going into his second year as a starter here at South Carolina, and Jaden Davis right now buried on the depth chart of Michigan as they're bringing in a superstar freshman in Bryce Underwood to be their guy going forward. And Davis, unless he transfers, maybe not be seeing the field anytime soon.
Oh, and also bringing in, now this could be just a depth. I don't want to be that guy. Oh, look, they're bringing in that guy. But apparently Bryce Underwood not maybe as ready is the word. They're bringing in Jake Garcia, who
I was on his 5th school or whatever.
On his 18th year of college football.
After going to like 8 different high schools.
Yeah, exactly. That was a big deal when he moved from California to Buford.
His parents had to legally divorce or something.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Make that happen.
But yeah, I mean, it just goes like it is. This is why enjoy Lenoris Sellers.
Yes.
Because it is hard to find a guy like him.
Yep.
Who lives up to that hype.
We'll continue to unpack everything Bruce Feldman said about Lenoris Sellers in his article in The Athletic coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on The Game. Welcome back in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris with you on our Tuesday, continuing to break down Bruce Feldman's article in The Athletic, detailing a lot about Lenore Sellers and helping us understand a little bit more of the off-the-field part of his life compared to what we see on the field. And, watching him, especially in the back half of last year, really come into his own and really start living up to that potential and expectation that a lot of people placed on him. We talked about this as the season kind of came to a close after the big win against Clemson, going to the bowl game and, being on the fringe of the playoff and all that kind of stuff, that, South Carolina's number one objective in the offseason was going to be making sure that Lenore Sellers does not go anywhere. And we've become so conditioned in this world of college sports in general that if you have a superstar player that was an unknown nationally and they go out there and have a breakout season, everybody's going to come calling. Everybody's going to come try and pry them away from you, making offers left and right. And it wasn't really much of a controversy here locally, as it seemed like he got re-signed pretty quickly with the Garnet Trust to come back for his second year as a starter. Well, one of the more eye-opening things we've learned in this article, and we've heard the rumors and stuff about it, here and there since then, but his father, Norris Sellers, literally tells Bruce Feldman, he got offered $8 million over 2 seasons to go play somewhere else, and he turned that down to come back to South Carolina. Now, look, he was compensated very well for this upcoming season at South Carolina, so it's not like he's making nothing, but it is certainly rare, it seems like, in this time in college sports that somebody is willing to stay where they're at and pass up a bigger payday somewhere else.
Well, one thing that comes to mind here, you do have to remember, if you're a fan, this is not, if you want to use the most extreme example that was quoted in the story, Norris, his father, was saying, the biggest one I heard was $8 million for 2 years. Okay, let's use that as an example. This isn't South Carolina being expected to keep Lenore Sellers if you're paying him not market value, right?
Sure.
I'm sure he's doing plenty fine here. But that said, you would have expected from Lenore Sellers and his family and the way he was raised, they're not just going to go jump somewhere just because someone's offering more money.
Yes.
And it was not said which program that was, or even if that would have happened. A lot of people talk. A lot of people say things. Would somebody have paid it? Probably. That would have made sense. If we had heard that, sure, there'd be some people on Twitter, it's not worth that, whatever. But we've seen, what did Carson Beck get? What did
3-4
Darian Mensah get to go from Tulane to Duke?
Yep.
Lenore Sellers is in that category, and we know some of those guys are getting big paydays, so he certainly could have. So the point of what I'm saying is, if you're South Carolina, it's a good thing you're well situated enough in NIL that you can keep the Lenore Sellers and the Dylan Stewarts around. You also have to recruit the right type of kids, and you have to be doing well as a program. We saw the season they had last year. We know Shane Beamer has been very hyper-focused on keeping a good locker room and keeping the team aspect of South Carolina, not just being a bunch of hired gun mercenaries, but having an actual college football program even in this new structure. And so when you add up the fact that South Carolina could take care of Lenore Sellers and that they have that culture and that they've had some success, that he's had individual success here, and that he's a local kid and the type of kid that you want in your program, all that adds up to where you were going to have a great chance to keep him around here, I think.
Yeah, I think $8 million, when you hear that, maybe people do run out of the road almost, but at the same time, it's really not. It's $8 million supposedly, over 2 years. So I remember, hey, is there a $4 million a year quarterback out there was a discussion people were having. And so that $3 to $4 million a year, is not that far-fetched for an elite quarterback. And if you were going to convince a guy to leave home, to leave a program he's comfortable, to leave a program where he has roots and teammates and, kind of brothers for life, then you were going to have to make it very, very, very kind of over the top. And so I don't think that number is really all that far-fetched at all. But if you're South Carolina and things were not on a good foundation, if things were where they need to be as a program, and you weren't winning. And the other part of this too, if you were Lenore Sellers and you were one of those guys that if you're a kid who doesn't really have an NFL future, but you're just a really good college player, maybe you kind of look at it like, man, I need to maximize what I can do in college. But if you're Sellers, I feel like you're kind of like, all right, for one, I'm loyal. I'm not just chasing the bag. But two, I can stay home. I can be around my friends and teammates, be around my family. I can still become a millionaire, and then I can go be a top 5 pick. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to starting over somewhere new. So, I think there's some layers to that as well, but it does give you a little bit, just to me, it's just a little bit more confirmation, a little bit more validity to, okay, no matter how much Clemson fans want to say this guy's a running back, that is absurd. He, is a budding superstar.
So, and his parents are obviously featured pretty heavily in this article, and his dad's the one that gave that quote about the $8 million. And of course, you guys have covered this recruiting process and everything of getting him to South Carolina over the years. I mean, what sense do you get about his upbringing, obviously the family involvement, his career, and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to what Chris and I talked about a little bit earlier, where you had the Nico situation where his dad's kind of guiding him in the wrong direction and has led him to being in a tougher situation at UCLA than Tennessee, where it really seems like obviously very supportive, but allowing Lenore Sellers to be his own guy at the college level.
I'll step in on this one, Chris, if that's okay. The thing that's always stood out to me about Lenore Sellers and his family, so I'll go back. This was before he was a starting quarterback, and we were at I was involved with the Firefly game where Lenore threw out the first pitch. And Lenore shows up. His mom's there. His dad's there. His brother's there. I think a couple family friends were there. And so when he has these events, and I've heard when they did the thing at Mason Jar in New York City, dad's there. I wasn't there. I don't know. Maybe mom was too. But point being, like when Sellers has all these events, there's an entourage. And the entourage for him is not, people trying to hang on to Lenore's fame. It's the people that have supported him from the very beginning. It's his family. And that always kind of has stuck out to me, that it doesn't matter what the event is. It doesn't matter what's going on. His family is going to, just from what I've seen myself, they're going to make every effort to be there and to support him, even if it's just sitting there watching him sign autographs, So I think that illustrates it perfectly. Like these people have supported him from day one. But I think on the other side, Lenoris, you can tell just from his comments, like he understands that. He understands what a great family he has, and just honestly, an awesome group of people.
Yeah, you hear so many stories in the NIL space. You brought up the Nico one, Tyler. And Wes, I know you and I have heard a bunch of them where, the guys, the young men are not getting great counsel, whether it's from agents who are just out for a money grab, convincing kids to do things, whether the home life is not, you don't have great guidance there. He has a professional, very good agent team. He's got his mom and dad. He's got people around him who are guiding him in the right direction. And you never heard in the offseason, Lenoris's dad is asking for this. You hear that on other guys. Sure. You do. To where it's a problem, and you never heard that. And if you read the story, not that Lenoris was thinking about leaving either, but his dad's saying, hey, we're good. We're good right here. Be where your feet are. You're doing just fine. All the things that you just said, Wes, have a chance to be a top 5 pick, have a chance to leave a legacy, stay home. When you walk into a new situation, it's a new situation. You kind of know what you've got here, and you can try to bloom here. So, I mean, that has helped tremendously, and I think that's a huge reason why Lenoris is the way he is. It's the way that he was brought up.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And again, great article by Bruce Feldman on The Athletic. Yeah, I can get a chance to read it on a little bit more of an insight on who Lenore Sellers is, and certainly helps you getting more excited for the season coming up in just 75 days. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour. Some history made yesterday out in Omaha. We'll hit that coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris wrapping up your Tuesday morning. That was yesterday afternoon out in Omaha. Gage Wood of Arkansas throwing a no-hitter in a 3-0 victory over Murray State as Arkansas avoids elimination, sending the Racers home and making history. The first time in 65 years somebody's thrown a no-hitter at the College World Series. It's one of those things, watching it yesterday, I didn't carry the way. I think most of us kind of lean towards Murray State because of the underdog story, but when you get to watch something like that unfold, it's so cool seeing history like that being made, and you end up cheering for a guy like him in those last couple of innings to complete the thing. Nearly had the perfect game as well, just coming up a little bit short of that.
What was that, the 7th or 8th inning he hit the guy?
8th inning, and then he hit one in the 9th that they overturned. But, yeah, he was darn close to throwing a perfect game in the process.
I mean, what an accomplishment, to not only to, you just do that in a baseball game. That's a heck of an accomplishment. To do it out in Omaha. I mean, it's only the, 4th time it's happened? Like you said, third, yeah. First time in 60-something years. I mean, a great accomplishment to do it on that stage with that kind of pressure, too, is something else. It was hilarious after. I mean, my man was keyed up after the game. You could tell his heart rate was 200 still. And first thing, what'd you think of it? I shouldn't have hit that guy. That was awesome.
Yeah. Probably lost some sleep over that.
Well,
I know.
I got to give him credit after he hit the guy.
Yep.
That late in the outing, that he didn't crash out and kind of like he kept his composure. Like the fact is, you don't go to the ballpark thinking you're going to have a perfect game. You don't go to the ballpark thinking you're going to have a no-hitter. You say, let me give my team a chance to win this game. And sometimes when there's a no-hitter, the perfect game is out the window already. There's like an early walk, an early hit back. But you've got on your brain, like I may do something that is just rarely ever done. And then you hit the guy, well, there goes that. All right, I got to refocus. The fact he was able to refocus and do what he did to finish it off, just incredible. I was not watching the game. I just saw the highlights. Were there any incredible defensive plays? I feel like every no-hitter I've ever seen, there's at least 1 or 2 plays where the defense has to basically save what would have been a hit.
I'm not thinking of any. He had 19 strikeouts, so he did most of the work himself. And I was watching about the first 3 innings here, drove home, turned it on. It was about the 7th or 8th inning. I don't recall anything particularly wow on defense that was like, oh, my God, if that doesn't happen, then it's not a no-hitter anymore.
There was one, and in a different kind of way was difficult. There was one, it was actually a foul ball that the catcher had to go get, and it was right up. It was actually a difficult play, right up against the backstop, basically, and, threw his mask kind of last minute, and it was a difficult, if you're just watching the game, just routine. It really wasn't routine.
Sure.
Because of how close to the wall it was. And you got to think, hey, if he doesn't make that play, who knows? Maybe it wasn't like a ground ball to short that was a hot shot, great play, or a diving catch in the outfield, but just one of those maybe kind of hidden things you forget about. There was also a time, I think it was the 3rd inning, he did get a 3-2 count and then struck the guy out, as he did with, like you said, Wes, 18 other guys throughout the game. So, I mean, he handled the moment great. God, it would have been all. I mean, I was certainly rooting. I came into the game rooting for Murray State, but you're sitting there in the 8th inning, with a perfect game on the line. You kind of flip the script, and you're hoping for that to happen. But an awesome performance nonetheless.
Yeah, and that we don't have a ton of time for it, but that unfortunately ends the Cinderella run for Murray State. Again, only the 4th seed to ever make it to the College World Series. And, you heard the emotion from the coach, from the players after the game. It's just it's neat to see these stories play out. Obviously not what they ended up, not what they wanted with the end result, but a fun team to watch nonetheless.
Well, unlike the Chanticleers, which definitively not a Cinderella story, we can all agree, right? Murray State.
Yep. Yes.
Confirmed Cinderella story.
Absolutely. A College World Series action underway right now. LSU and UCLA finishing up last night's game. LSU up 7-3 in the middle of the 6th right now. And more games to come later on this afternoon. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show, myself, Terry Ford. Up next on your Tuesday on the Game.